So hello, welcome to Scotland, home to the greatest driving roads in the UK in an area I believe to be Yaris country. Now this, for me, comes into its own once you get onto a proper British B road. And up here we have the best of them. So we brought the Yaris up to just the sort of edge of the Highlands, and weirdly, I'm hoping it's about to rain, because for me, that's when this thing really comes into its own. Adverse conditions, tight little roads with rocks and bumps and undulations, and just a little bit of slip to get this all-wheel drive going. So without further ado, let's go Highland hunting. Now check this out, look, the direction changes through here. Honestly, are you kidding me? So hello, and welcome back to the pocket rocket that is the Toyota GR Yaris. I mean, when was the last time you thought, I can't wait to drive a car in the wet? This thing, seriously, the way that this thing, look at it, the way this thing hustles a greasy, wet B road, it just beggars belief. It picks it apart. In fact, it actually actively relishes in adversity. Now we'll just slow it down a notch so I can string some sentences to you together. So if you're joining the journey or joining the channel, this is the first time you're here, thank you, welcome to the channel. And we're in our channel's hot hatch, the now iridescent yellow GR Yaris. The car was launched in 4 colours only, black, red, white and pearlescent white. And so we had this thing wrapped in yellow just to make it pop a little bit more. Now it looks distinctly like the angry wasp that it is. Now it's a 4-wheel drive car, but there is multiple driver modes. There's a drive select switch down here on the central console, where you can push the central button to put it into normal mode, which is full equal split 4-wheel drive. You can do sport and you can do track. In those modes, that can effectively split the drive 70-30, and that's when the car kind of comes into its own in terms of finding fun slip angles and things like that. But today, honestly, it's been one of those funny, greasy, slippy days where the last few days have been really sunny. The asphalt's been baked, and now there's been this sort of smattering of rain where it's quite slippy, quite greasy. Honestly, I reckon you'd have a good job and a good time keeping up with this, even in a GT3 in conditions like this today. This is honestly what this car is made for. Funnily enough, a friend of mine texted me a few days ago going, thinking of buying a GR Yaris, is it worth it? I think I just replied with yes. But honestly, if I had the time to write him a short essay, I would say yes, caveat, it comes into its own in the winter, or should I say in adverse conditions. And that's why today I'm so excited to have it up pretty much in the Scottish Highlands on the best B roads that our wonderful country has to offer, surrounded by hillsides, beautiful purple hues coming off the mountain, and just enough slip and direction changes to make this thing interesting. So where do we start? 260 horsepower, which these days doesn't sound like much, but the car weighs just over 1,300 kilograms. And with that all-wheel drive traction, the way that this thing puts it down, you can dump clutch in first, full revs, the thing just squats and goes, does not skip a beat. Barely a light will flash on the dash to let you know that the thing is struggling for traction. Now this car's wearing the standard fit, if you spec the track pack, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, which is a great all-rounder. And then when you pair it together with the technical ability of the rally developed platform that is the GR Yaris, sometimes I just have to pause and go, how did this thing just make it through that set of corners with such dynamic prowess? It is remarkable. Now, interestingly, the ride quality and slower speeds might not quite be as refined, but stay with me here. The little GR Yaris is kind of like a jet ski. Stay with me here. You know, jet skis, they need to find their plane before they become agile, right? As you're exiting the harbour at sort of slower speeds, it's a little bit wallowy, not too responsive, not too direct, but you get enough speed and it begins to plane, and and that's when a jet ski becomes hyper agile and super reactive. Little Yaris, very similar to that. It's got an operating window, and in that window the thing comes alive, everything fizzes, it begins to dance and move around. The sharp brakes, they make sense because the car's so light. When you anchor on, it sheds off so much speed effortlessly. It's a great little package. Anyway, a little bit of an overview of the GR Yaris as a platform for those who might be scratching your head going, how can a Yaris be as good as he's talking about? Really, the brand term Yaris is quite deceptive. From the exterior, this literally only shares the headlights, tail lights, and I think the aerial with an actual Toyota Yaris. The rest of it was literally built from the ground up to go into the World Rally Championship. So there were some rules and regulations which said that the car needed to be a production homologated road car with X amount of units being sold for it to qualify as a World Rally Championship car based on the previous generation's rules. Subsequently, they've changed. That's kind of by the by. So what Toyota did, rather than going at adapting an existing platform, take for example a standard Yaris and going, how can we make this the best rally car it can possibly be, there was always going to be compromises in that approach. So Toyota went, you know what, why don't we build the best rally car we can, put some number plates on it, sell it to a few thousand of the public, and then we'll go rallying. And that gave them advantages in terms of aerodynamics, being able to place aero on parts of the car which they wouldn't have been able to do if it was a four-door car, hence this being a two-door Yaris. And if you're familiar with the Yaris, they're four doors, so that's also where this car differentiates entirely from a Yaris. Now the power is deceptive because, as I mentioned, 260 brake doesn't sound like a lot these days, but it's all to do with the power to weight ratio, not so much the power itself. Just over 1,300 kilograms means this thing is a true pocket rocket. However, if you were to get into this thing with me right now as a passenger or a driver, and I was to tell you that 260 horsepower was developed from a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, you'd tell me to jump out of the car. You'd be like, you are full of it, there's no way. The performance that Toyota have managed to get out of this engine is remarkable. By and large, the engine characteristics in terms of sound is a little bit disappointing from stock. Hence, we had an RS Fabrications aftermarket exhaust fitted to it to give it a little bit more of that raspy, dare I say it, boy racer driving sound, driving feel, which has added a lot more to, I guess I would say, the theatre and engagement of driving the car. Before that, standard, from the outside, it literally sounded like a Dyson. And then from the inside, it was so quiet that the exhaust sound you thought you were hearing was actually synthetically pumped in through the speakers of the car. So that gives you an idea of just how lacking a 3-cylinder engine is when it comes to just driving enjoyment, really. That being said, when it comes to the punch, the performance, the torque, this thing's ridiculous. It puts a smile on your face so much because, honestly, I'm not just saying this, on today's road, as I stand right here, we've got trees overhanging, we have some sap that was sort of baked on from that heat earlier. It's now getting quite greasy. I'm not sure I would be able to flow down here with as much poise, speed and confidence in a fat tired sports car or supercar as I am in this car right now. And there's the asterisk, there's the caveat. In the dry, it's almost too good. Now bear with me. It's great in the wet and in the damp and when you're in adverse conditions because it becomes playful, it becomes slippy, slidey, and it feels like that rally DNA is becoming accessible. To access the rally DNA in the dry, I mean, just the speed. The speed that this thing will do in the dry is positively prison-inducing. License losing, hedgerow introducing. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So for me, the GR Yaris really comes into its own in the wet. Hence me being more than happy, for once, if you're a regular subscriber of this channel, to accept the fact that we're up here in the Scottish Highlands and it's raining, and not only don't I care, I'm actually really happy about it. And that for me is the value in this car. Imagine waking up, going for a drive, pulling open those curtains and going, it's raining, it's wet. When would you ever do that in a sports car? So that's why this thing's brilliant. Now on top of that, it's actually fairly practical. I mean, if you're planning on using a big boot, probably not. But if you drop the seats, it becomes like a sort of small estate car, and that's quite cool. Anyway, less on the practicality, more on the miles per gallon, of which this thing is disproportionate. Now, one thing that really resonated with me is the ability to be able to trim your driving line by left foot braking while still maintaining an element of throttle depression. Now, the reason I say that that's cool is that 99% of road cars, quite simply, will not let you do that. They do not like to feel throttle and brake at the same time, but real drivers' cars, and more importantly, real rally cars, they have to do that. If you look at the pedal movement of the way that a rally driver works his feet, he is like a sort of eccentric ballet dancer. The movements, he's all over the place, stabbing the clutch at one point, stabbing the brake at the next point, still maintaining full throttle while trimming the line. That's where this thing really comes in to its own. If you can maintain a balanced throttle through a corner in this thing and then just trim the nose with the brakes, the weight goes on its nose and the way that it can find turn-in grip. Again, in the wet, berserk. Now look, 30 grand is 30 grand. I'm not gonna pretend like for a hot hatch, on the outside at least, it's punchy, it's up there. But honestly, I defy you to find something in the 30 grand bracket that has the character and unique capabilities of this car. Now, a lot of that is all about fun, really. I mean, it is practical, it's got 4 seats, it's got ISOFIX, all that jazz. Really, it's all about having fun. And once again, 30 grand's 30 grand. Toyota offers some pretty decent finance. I think you can get into one of these for around about £300 a month, or just over £300 a month, with a fairly acceptable deposit. And then you've got what has become very quickly a cult car. And honestly, the value, okay, it's a little bit plasticky inside. It does have that Yaris quality on the interior. But the drive, once you've driven it, all of that goes out of the window. You've got Apple CarPlay. You could easily use this as a daily driver. Yeah, and it's compact. I think it looks cool. The front screams rally. Now, things that we've changed, as I mentioned, color, that's obvious. I also had the RS Fabrications exhaust fitted. We've done that. The next thing that I would like to play with is the seats. Now, you kind of get used to them, but when you get into it at first, it is like you're sat on a chair, not on a seat. They do sit quite high. They're quite supportive, they're comfortable, but I reckon just a drop, if you could just drop these seats half an inch, it would just allow you to settle in the car that little bit more. And I think aesthetically you could probably find something which was a little bit more appropriate. And then I wouldn't mind going full rally spec in time for winter. When the clocks go back, the weather's really bad, and I'm using this thing a lot more because, as I mentioned, it comes right into its own. Some hella lamps on it, some big rally style mud flaps. What about a CAE shifter? Maybe an upgraded hydraulic handbrake? What a thing! What a little thing! Honestly, it's so good. So yes, this is kind of, in my eyes, despite the fact that we've had this on the channel for, crikey, it must be 7 months now, something like that. This to me feels like the first drive. It feels like I've got it into Yaris country. These are the roads which this thing was bred for. And honestly, the surface of the road that I'm on now, not great. This thing loves it. Traction, not great. This thing loves it. View, fantastic. This thing loves it. Honestly, it's so good. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we shall see you next time. Ciao!